This seems to mention is also a factor. Conor Benn being the younger man at his prime, yeah?
You can trust me, I'm not going to give you any, I'm not going to mislead you. You know, I'm a lawman.
But they're going to have this fight, Chris.
No, they're not.
Well,
no, hold on. I'm not going to discuss that with you because I've just said the fight doesn't happen.
If I would say unhealthy, I mean, he was extremely strict.
Chris Eubank Sr. has publicly voiced his strong opposition to the proposed fight between his son, Chris Eubank Jr, and fellow British boxer Conor Benn, particularly under the original conditions set. His main concern revolves around the contracted catch weight of 157 pounds, which is significantly below Eubank Jr.'s natural fighting weight. Eubank Sr. has made it clear that he cannot and will not allow his son to drop to such a low weight, citing serious health risks. He believes that forcing a fully developed middleweight or super middleweight like Eubank Jr. to cut down to 157 pounds could be dangerous, especially due to the risks of dehydration and strength loss commonly associated with extreme weight cuts.
Yeah, if he's fighting at 168, you know, you go ahead and do what, but you cannot come down to 160. I will not allow that. I will not allow it, or let me rephrase it. May the divine providence not allow that fight to ever happen. Okay, you are to stay at 168. And, you know, Matchroom, you know, let Conor go and have his illustrious career here in the United Kingdom and then in the United States because he beats them all. That's how fantastic I think he is. Yeah, I've always backed that young man. I've always backed you, Conor. I've always backed you. Okay, you're sensible. You know, if it's true that you've said things about me which are not complimentary, I don't mind that.
Chris Eubank Sr. has attributed the initial cancellation of the fight between Conor Benn and his son to what he describes as divine intervention, implying that fate or a higher power stepped in to stop something that wasn't meant to happen. He emphasized that it was his decision to halt the fight, speaking from the perspective of both a father and a former world champion. While he respects Benn's abilities, Eubank Sr. expressed concern about those in Benn's camp, suggesting their priorities might lie more with profit than with the fighter's long-term safety. His message is clear. Although he acknowledges Benn's talent, his son's health and safety will always come first, and he refuses to support any bout that he feels puts that in jeopardy.
Okay, you can trust me. Yeah, you've seen me get up in a fight I can't win and walk back into the fire. You can trust me. I'm not going to give you any, I'm not going to mislead you. You know, I'm a lawman.
But they're going to have this fight, Chris.
No, they're not.
Well,
no, hold on. I'm not going to discuss that with you because I've just said the fight doesn't happen.
You can't.
It's finished.
You can't stop it.
Again, I stopped it the first time. But you want me to qualify that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the fight was made, I said that fight is not happening. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything again up until the day of the fight, where it was cancelled the day before. So let's do the same thing again. Fine.
Chris Eubank Sr. has long been a symbol of discipline and control in his son's life, especially when it comes to Chris Eubank Jr.'s single quotes boxing career. His strict approach was never just about technique. It was about crafting a fighter who embodied his vision of excellence. He instilled in his son a deep sense of purpose, discipline, and focus, shaping his style around a specific philosophy. Now, looking at the current state of boxing, Eubank Sr. has expressed frustration with the sport's promotional culture, which he feels values hype over real skill. His disappointment in Eubank Jr.'s recent career choices is clear, especially with the influence of Roy Jones Jr., which he believes diluted his son's once unique style. Eubank Sr. laments, "I trained you. I gave you an extraordinary start for him." This isn't just about boxing, it's about seeing his son return to the roots that made him exceptional.
Sure. Would the public be interested in such a fight? Unfortunately, because promoters have been constantly rinsing the public with these fights, which actually are about names, not about abilities. So, you know, they would take an interest in this fight. I think it's okay for me to actually say this. I trained you. I brought you up in this boxing. I gave you an extraordinary start. That is based on your ability to box. The style that you had was incredible.
Chris Eubank Jr. has been open about the complexities of his relationship with his father. Growing up under his father's intense guidance, he often felt the burden of high expectations and strict discipline. Eubank Jr. has shared that this control, particularly during his formative years, shaped much of his personality and actions, sometimes resulting in rebellion and frustration. His struggles in school were partly a consequence of this rigid upbringing, which left little room for self-expression or typical childhood development. While he acknowledges his father's pivotal role in his boxing foundation, there's also a lingering conflict. Even as an adult, Eubank Jr. feels his father's presence and control, especially when Eubank Sr. claims credit for who he's become. Though grateful for the platform his father provided, Eubank Jr. yearns for independence, the chance to define himself on his own terms, outside the long shadow of his father's legacy.
I don't know if I would say unhealthy. I mean, he was extremely strict. I got away with nothing. If I messed up in school, if I didn't do a chore, if I got into a fight with my brothers, there was physical punishment, whether it was a belt, whether it was a cane, whether it was, a slap. Back then, in the 90s, that was how you disciplined your kids. So that is where my fear obviously originated from, having to deal with that. But again, that type of punishment and that type of upbringing, that type of strictness, it made me who I am today. It prepared me for the brutality of the sport of boxing.
Chris Eubank Sr. has consistently expressed that he believed his son had the potential to become one of the greatest boxers of his generation. Reflecting on their journey, he now feels a deep sense of disappointment, believing that Eubank Jr. failed to reach his full potential by straying from the guidance and principles he provided. According to Eubank Sr., if his son had stuck to the training methods and style he taught him, he could have become a dominant force in the sport. His frustration stems not just from missed titles, but from the wasted promise he saw in his son. He firmly believes that the strategy and discipline he instilled were tailored for greatness, but Eubank Jr.'s reluctance to fully embrace them led to underachievement. For Eubank Sr., success in boxing comes down to discipline, trust in your training, and learning from experienced qualities he feels his son overlooked, ultimately limiting his rise.
If you don't listen, you're going to feel.
So now he's not listening when you're winning. He can't win.
He can't win
now, can he?
He has never listened.
Make your mind up, Chris. 1 minute.
No, I've made up my mind. You're just hearing it for the first time.
Okay.
He's never listened. He's my son. I know what he is.
I know you know better than all of us.
My son could have been a tremendous fighter. He electrified me when watching him.
I agree on that, but he hasn't been, has he?
Because he doesn't listen, and when you don't listen, okay, you have to feel.
Chris Eubank Sr. has taken time to reflect on his past, acknowledging the mistakes he made while raising his children, especially Chris Eubank Jr. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he admitted that his overly strict and controlling parenting style may have strained their relationship. This realization has added more depth to his perspective on his son's career and their emotional bond. Eubank Sr. confessed that his biggest regret was not fostering a more open and understanding relationship with his son, one that could have shaped both their personal and professional dynamics differently. Their relationship became even more complicated after Eubank Jr. chose to break away from his father's guidance and chart his own path in boxing, a move that felt like betrayal to Eubank Sr., who believed in the greatness of the system he built. Despite their rift, Eubank Sr. continues to want the best for his son. His reflections now carry the weight of missed opportunities and a wish that, perhaps with a more balanced approach, they could have avoided the emotional fallout that has defined much of their journey.
What's the biggest thing you've been wrong about in the last year?
That's funny. My biological children. Move on.
What have you been wrong about with your biological
You asked me
children?
the question, I gave you the answer. That's private. Move on.
What's your biggest regret?
My son asked me, Sebastian, he said to me, Dad, we were in Malibu. He said, Dad, let's go and smoke a spliff together and walk around the block. Let's walk around the block and smoke a spliff together. The greatest offer of my life I turned down because I was broke. I did something unspeakable.
What was the unspeakable thing you did?
Not your business. How dare you? If I
Don't ask, you don't get.
You should know. It's called discernment. I've brought you close enough for you to understand. Be careful to question me, young man. Know your place.
Veteran trainer Don Charles recently shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, echoing many of Chris Eubank Sr.'s concerns. Charles pointed out that key factors such as age, weight, and physical prime are crucial to understanding the matchup. He emphasized that Benn, being younger and in the prime of his career, could have a significant advantage. The age gap between the fighters, combined with Benn's explosive style reminiscent of his father Nigel Benn, might present a serious challenge for Eubank Jr. Charles warned that Benn's relentless pressure could overwhelm Eubank Jr., especially if he is not fully prepared. While Eubank Jr. may have size and strength on his side, Charles stressed that those advantages depend on whether he's been maintaining proper discipline and conditioning. In the end, Charles called it a 50-50 fight, acknowledging that in boxing, surprises are always around the corner.
As a trainer, somebody who's trained fighters for a long time, do you feel like that's going to be a big part of this fight? And do you feel like it's a bit dangerous for Chris?
Well, most definitely. If anyone should know, his father, Senior, he said his mind, and I second that opinion. That's a factor. The weight is a factor. The age, nobody seems to mention, is also a factor. Conor Benn being the younger man at his prime, yeah? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Benn, especially the way he fights like his father, very aggressive, yeah? And listen, if I'm gonna have to, I normally can't say to you, predict what I believe will happen. Christopher Jr. is the bigger man, granted. It depends. It depends. If he's been living the lifestyle, that's also a factor.
Promoter Frank Warren has also weighed in on the highly anticipated clash between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., acknowledging the excitement it generates due to the historic rivalry between their families. While Warren has expressed a preference for Benn to win, he also highlighted the challenges of the fight, particularly regarding the weight difference. He pointed out that Benn moving up in weight is a critical variable one that could affect his performance and ultimately the outcome of the bout. Despite Eubank Jr.'s single quotes as physical advantages in size and strength, Warren stressed that it's up to the teams and the sport's governing bodies, not outside opinions, to determine if the fight should proceed safely. While he admitted the fight might not be a perfect technical matchup, he noted that the public demand for it is what's driving the business forward.
Get yourself.
Frank, you've made it clear that you'd like to see Conor Benn knock out Chris Eubank Jr. You've made it clear who you want to see win that fight. How do you actually see the fight playing out, and what have you made of Chris Eubank, the way that he's carried himself in the build-up?
First of all, we all talk about the best fight and the best. That's not the best fight and the best, but it's a fight. There's a demand for it from the public because of their history. So that's why it's selling so well and doing so much business. How do I see it playing out? I don't know if Conor can give away the weight. I don't know. I hope he can.
Do you agree with Chris Eubank Sr. where he says that the fight is unsafe to make due to the weight?
That's up to his teams to decide that. It's up to the boxing board of control. That's not up to me.
Conor Benn has been outspoken about the historic significance of his upcoming fight with Chris Eubank Jr., acknowledging the deep-rooted rivalry between their families in British boxing. He recognizes that this marks the first time in history where both the fathers and sons have been involved in such a high-profile bout, making it a generational spectacle. The fight resonates with fans young and old, evoking memories of past battles while ushering in a new era. However, despite its historical weight, Benn insists that for him, it's simply another fight. He remains unfazed by the pressure and is focused entirely on the goal of defeating Chris Eubank Jr. Benn is clear in his intentions. He wants to make a statement and prove himself not just as Nigel Benn's son, but as a fighter in his own right, independent of the family legacy.
It's the first fight like this has happened in history. Two fathers, sons. The fathers captivated the imagination of the British public, and this fight's doing exactly that. It appeals to so many generations, the young, the middle, the old. But ultimately, again, it's just a fight. I'm not really concerned about the magnitude of the fight. I'm going in there to do a number on him.